Hi, and welcome back to the Money Effect, where I bring you all news, finance, investment, and money related. Disclaimer: this is just for entertainment purposes. And now that's out the way, let's go. So let's talk about what's going on in the financial markets. And I think this video is just going to be more of a kind of general overview, explaining like the main themes of what's going on and how that's kind of affecting the stock markets, as opposed to looking at specific stocks. And obviously, you can see it right now. And if unless you're not interested in, well, I guess unless you don't. Well, I don't know how you wouldn't have seen it, but unless you're in some living some completely different and not that it's a bad thing, because sometimes it's very good to get away from all the noise. You would know that there's a war going on right now in Ukraine. uh Not really getting into it. I don't know too much about the reasons why. Maybe I'll do some research on that, but it's not politics channel. But in essence, Ukraine is was moving closer to the European Union. They wanted to be part of NATO. NATO is an alliance that would have literally put NATO right on the doorsteps of Russia. Obviously, Russia not they're not trying to have that. They tried to get Ukraine to back down. Ukraine probably thought they were bluffing, so they've decided to invade, and which is a good thing at the moment, because obviously Ukraine is not part of NATO, and any country that's part of NATO, if one of them ever gets fired on, like a Poland, for example, then the whole of NATO and its allies would have to respond, which is America. And we'll get on to why that was causing the mad anguish. So obviously, war is a bad thing in terms of uncertainty, and we really don't know what's going on there. Initially, was it just going in there? We saw a big drop in the stock markets. Was it just going in there to take power quickly? Was it, now this is being delayed? What's really happening? So that's basically the main thing. War, but it's not also just because there's war, the stock market's going to crash, or just because there's war, the stock market go up. It's just going to be very volatile. Just adding another layer. We've got rid of the other C, and now we're back to this now. And obviously, one of the things I'm going to touch on later is inflation. Again, it's leading to it's adding to the inflation. I've been talking about inflation now for all my videos and from last year, and inflation just keeps going up. And although I did expect it to go up, I didn't expect it to go up because of a war. So this is again, it's just adding to it. And last week we had a big drop in the stock markets late because Putin, he put the nuclear weapons on alert. Now, we're in the territory where if there was the way their doctrines work, or their what they have down is, if somebody fires on someone, first of all, let's go back to nuclear weapons. Apparently, the whole premise of nuclear weapons is that they're deterrents. So, Russia's got them, America's got them, Germany's got them. So that just means, well, no one's going to let it off, because if anyone lets it off, we're all going to die. So that was kind of the basic premise. But NATO are not involved directly. Ukraine are trying to drag them in, but they're not involved. They're sending weapons, and I think the backlash has probably been a bit too much for Putin. There's loads of companies have pulled out in Russia. Again, we'll talk about sanctions later. Um, you know, just, these top oligarchs, or whatever you call them, that have links to Putin, they've all been, getting punished. Their big yachts are being seized, and listen, if you watch football, Roman Abramovich, he revolutionized the Premier League. He's the one that brought the big money into the Premier League. Before, you had these Arabs, these American owners. It really was, obviously you had big, when Blackburn won the league, they spent big, but he was kind of the first foreign owner that come in to bring that kind of money in. And now, like, most of the Premier League clubs are under foreign ownership, and now he's, well, not, one would say not forced, but he's been given the option to sell before sanctions hit him. So it's a lot of unknowns right now, and obviously one of the big unknown is always, if NATO did get involved, that would put them in basically a direct war with Russia, and obviously NATO has more. Russia singly has the most nuclear weapons, but NATO has a lot of nuclear weapons, so that's gonna that's not a good look. So yeah, we've got that, and that's what's going on right now. So the markets are just gonna basically, if things get worse, a lot of it is priced in right now in terms of, well, obviously nuclear war is not priced in, but a lot of it is priced in. They're invaded now, so once it's happened, we can kind of take that out of the picture. It's kind of now what goes on after that. So if we look at one of the things today why the stock market was falling is because of oil. So again, oil is adding to the inflation pressure, and it's also going to add to the economic growth picture now. Russia's been faced with a lot of sanctions, probably more than they thought that they would even have to deal with. Vladimir Putin has a nice gold reserve. Obviously, he's not going to hurt, but they're targeting his people around him, and it's probably a lot more than he anticipated. And I think that the line now is companies are still buying Russian oil. We saw Shell; they came out the other day, they bought Russian oil heavily discounted. They're saying they did it to keep the supply going, but yet prices are still going up at the pumps, which again is going to affect, the bank stocks are sliding today. If you look at the banks, because this is all going to impact people. Cost of living was already high. I've been talking about inflation and cost of living for how long now? I didn't anticipate there was going to be a war that would just now start pushing oil and petrol up even more. We're literally going to see £2 at the pump soon, unless there's a ceasefire or something like that. These companies will just keep making money. I don't know if the government's going to do anything about it tax wise, but I don't really want to get into all this that kind of nonsense. But this is what is going to start. You've got to deal with the war, interest rates, inflation. Now you've got economic growth coming in because the economy is rebounded well. People, there's even more jobs than for people, but now we've got so many things coming on. This is kind of the last thing we need, and America and NATO, they've basically got to a point now which nobody thought they would. We saw last week Germany, they've got a pipeline that's doing a project with Russia to get more gas. And they're basically, well, temporarily cancelled it, which is going to be a big blow for the European countries. But I think because of what Russia have done, people are like, you know what, we don't even mind taking that hit now because it's just too much. And obviously, the last thing that's really going to pain Russia, which I'm sure Putin probably didn't think would ever happen, is if they ban ex buying Russian oil, which would definitely hurt Europe more than it would hurt America. But it would be a massive statement to make. They're going to do it, who knows? But obviously, if they do it, the market's thinking they're going to do it, and you've got crude up at 130. So stocks are falling based on that because you've got the economic pain that's going to cause. So that's not good. So what else is going on? Federal Reserve. These guys are still around. These guys they've been talking about inflation is not a big deal. It's just supply concerns and blah 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 blah. These guys are in the spotlight. There's a meeting in March. These guys are in the spotlight now. Initially, after the big drop of war broke out, the Nasdaq actually rallied, and it was a big rally. And you might ask yourself, why did the Nasdaq rally? Why did all those tech companies go up? Well, they went up because where there's war and there's uncertainty, people thought, you know what, the Federal Reserve, they might not raise interest rates 7 times this year. They might not do not dramatic raises to 0.5. And they basically did come out and kind of say they would not be that dramatic. But jobs are still going up, inflation is still going up. So they're in this tough spot because if they don't be dramatic, this inflation is going to even just get worse. And even if they do raise rates, they're really going to do anything if it's supply issues, and supply is not coming anytime soon. So the Federal Reserve is, especially if you're into those in tech companies or you're into them small growth companies, it's so uncertain right now. And I wouldn't be, Kathy Woods is saying, you know, all them growth companies, if you're looking at a 5-year horizon, if you're looking at a 5-year horizon and we don't go to nuclear war, then yeah, sure, dip your toes in, look at them good companies, maybe just put in small now. But if you're looking to make any big, because, last week we had, maybe this is the bottom, but, we're still seeing sell-offs, and the Federal Reserve is really it's going to be vital in what they decide to do to how this, if they leave it too late, we're just going to have more problems down the road. Obviously, if God forbid Putin somehow backed down and said, you know what, I'm going to leave Ukraine on its own, and everything went back to normal. But I don't think everything's ever going to go back to normal after what he's done, and I don't think he's even going to back down. If anything, he's going to double down. Unless Ukraine just give up, he's literally going to double down, and which could get worse. And we might, this World War III might be pending because we just don't know what. It's just going to take one spark. Ukraine have been talking about a no-fly zone. NATO needs to do a no-fly zone. A no-fly zone means NATO might shoot down a Russian plane. If that ever happens, that's World War III right there. And World War III, the Russia already said it's just going to be straight nuclear weapons. We're all going to get wiped out. Obviously, these billionaires or rich people that got their nuclear bunkers, they're cool. But once again, it'll be us on the front line. So the Federal Reserve has kind of got a balance in that because they've got to think about inflation, they've got to think about the war, they've got to think about kicking this can down the road, raising rates too far, stifling economic growth. So whatever they're going to do is going to move these markets now. And right now, the market's assuming that they're not going to be as dramatic. But, last week we had a big job growth number, and they come out and said, well, we're not aiming to be dramatic, but we're ready if the data says, because they're driven by the data. If the data is just too much, we're going to have to do what we've got to do. And if they do that with everything that's going on, all them Cathie Wood stocks are going back down even more. So Federal Reserve, look out for them. Okay, well, and I'll just get into crypto, but I'm going to talk about Bitcoin because Bitcoin's actually listen, volatility. I think this year the word is inflation, interest rates, war, and volatility. That's going to be the main thing. If you're not ready for the volatility, uh, either deal with it, add funds in once a month, or just get out of the game. Just get out of the game because this year's it's very volatile. And Bitcoin it's just kind of had a crazy ride this week. Initially, if we look here, we saw, around the time kind of, when war was breaking out, we had a big rise. Why did we have a big rise? Well, it kind of, it kind of, Bitcoin, I'll stick with Bitcoins because obviously there's a lot of cryptocurrencies out there doing a lot of things, but we just stick with Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been seen as many things, an alternative to the dollar. Transactions, these are things that have not really, one Bitcoin is 38,000. How are you going to transact in that? One day it's up 10%, one day it's down 10%. That's not realistic. We've seen it being called a store of value, like gold. Is it really a store of value when it's so volatile? We've seen it being called an inflation play, where inflation's been going up and Bitcoin's been going down. Is it that? So many narratives around it. Now, one of the narratives that has come to light is that with these sanctions, we all know, yes, the governments can sanction, but the government sanctioned the Russian central bank. They've actually sanctioned a bank. Like that's kind of unheard of. That they can actually go and sanction, and like they can sanction us. We know that. Like I know if I do something wrong and they say my bank is done fraudulent transactions, I know they're just going to block my account, and I've got to go and prove it. I know that as a civilian, but a government to do that to a government, like a major government, Russia's in the United Nations. That's a massive move, and I think there was a lot of flows into crypto on that basis of that. Okay, this is now actually giving crypto and Bitcoin an actual reason that this is a place that can't take your money because it's that's the whole premises of Bitcoin. So saw a lot of money going to that, and obviously there was a lot of funding helping Ukraine and stuff like that. Now, if we look at the Bitcoin price though, it went back down. Why did it go back down? Crackdown on crypto. So as soon as that narrative came into play, these politicians like Nancy Pelosi and all these people said, no, you know what? We need to crack down. We need tighter regulation on crypto because we can't have sanctions on Russia and then all these oligarchs and all these people now start just buying Bitcoin and funneling their money that way. No. We need some regulation on crypto. And there are some exchanges like Binance and Kraken. Please stop Russian deposits. And those exchanges that came out and said, listen, we don't agree with what's going on in Ukraine, of course, but the whole premises of crypto is free. We might be stopping some ordinary people that don't even want the Ukraine war, that live in Russia, and we're penalizing them as well. We just can't do that. So when they said they wouldn't do it, there's a lot of talking that the government is going to come up with more regulation on crypto, and as such, that's kind of, that's one of the reasons why it's dropped. And again, crypto seems to be moving. It's been talked of as an inflation play. It's not. It seems to be moving along the lines of risk assets, growth stocks, and things. And it's kind of not decoupling, which is a bit of a worry because it shouldn't really be moving like that. Because crypto, another narrative of crypto was it was a safe haven, but I think that's kind of now diminished. That's gone as well. Crypto is not a safe haven, because if it was a safe haven, with since this war started, we'll be going all the way up here. But look, you can see it's just so volatile. Look, this is not the movements of a safe haven asset. So let's talk about commodities, and there's a lot. Commodities are doing well in general. Obviously, oil companies, miners, but in terms of gold, gold is now, which is always traditionally seen as a safe haven, is now probably proving its mantle as a safe haven. And you can see it's literally, this is what a safe haven should do, not Bitcoin that's going here, 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 here. That's not a safe haven. That's just, what is that? This is a safe haven. When times of turmoil, you get steady, 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 steady. Yeah, you had a little blips, but nothing too major, nothing too major. It's going up. So now there's more money flowing into gold traditionally. So definitely, I think if you're somebody that's, or in fear of the nuclear war, or wants to kind of preserve your money, then gold, you know, it's a debate whether gold ETF, because you've got to pay fees, physical gold. But if you want to save your money, I would, house prices as well still going up. I would definitely um, start looking into gold as a safe haven play, because it's proven, yes, historically, and then once again it's proven, and it's not, Bitcoin is not a safe haven. So that's these are the kind of things that's going on right now, and yeah, just pay attention. Who knows what's going to happen? But like I said, the key words, and the most key word, is volatility. If you're not ready for the fire, then you better get out of the kitchen, because that's what it is right now. So anyway, over and out. The Money Effect. Like and subscribe. Peace.